Welcome to the Talk, Listen, Collaborate podcast. My name is Brittany Williams, and this is the second part of the mini-series on student engagement, how you can connect with your students using educational technology and inspire student learning. This episode is an accompaniment to the second technology demonstration, which you can now view on our YouTube Learning channel. In today's podcast episode, we will go into more detail regarding why polling might be a good solution to the 3 example educational challenges we covered in Tuesday's episode, and specifically why we chose to narrow down the tools based on the example general situational factors we discussed. Tuesday's episode included demonstrations of traditional polls as well as quizzing activities that were delivered using polling software. For the purposes of this talk, we will continue to include both activities when we refer to polling. Before we dive into our content for today's episode, let's define again what we mean by polling. Polling is an active learning technique that can be used to engage students in thinking about course content, as well as to assess their opinions, knowledge, and/or skills in real time with low or no stakes. As demonstrated by the 3 educational challenges that we discussed, poll activities can be used to serve many different purposes in various course sizes and formats. A few examples of general use for polling technology might be to assess student knowledge or understanding in or after class to determine whether to review course material, take a different pedagogical approach, or progress to the next topic. To engage students in problem solving, brainstorming, or breaking down concepts, whether that be individually or in small groups. To incorporate icebreaker activities. To encourage students to share their personal experiences and relate to the content being covered, or to solicit student feedback, to hold student discussions, or to make improvements to the course experience. While polling can be used for a wide variety of purposes, these activities can be completed as an individual activity or as part of a larger learning exercise. For example, they can be used as part of a class-wide discussion or when practicing clinical skill demonstrations. Technically, technology is not required to engage students with polling exercises. You can ask your students to raise their hand to vote for a specific answer choice, which might give you the information you're looking for. However, the use of technology can better help to seamlessly facilitate these activities and provide advantages for both the educator and the students that would incentivize the educator to learn and implement a technology tool when completing polling. Technology provides the option to gather more information and data that can be used to better the course experience for students. The key is to use the information received. If you collect the data and choose not to use this to inform your teaching practices, not only is it a waste of your class time, but students might begin to take notice and disengage, not seeing the purpose for the exercise. An example for how technology can be used to more effectively engage students while collecting responses might be to have students use smart devices that most have on them at all times to respond to open-ended questions. These answers can be used to assess the degree to which students understand a concept versus asking students to raise their hand to indicate their answer choice. The educator can read through these responses and make adjustments to their class session or use the answers to encourage a deeper class discussion. The educator might also encourage the class to observe the responses coming in and then upvote their answers from their peers to respectfully indicate whether they agree or disagree with the ideas. While there are many methods for implementing polling and reasons to do so, we will look back at the 3 general educational challenges and see why polling might be an appropriate answer. We will also take a closer look at the advantages of the polling tools we discussed to highlight some of the features that we explore before narrowing down our decision. Our first challenge focused on the educator's concern that they did not know what the student understood or did not understand from the content being taught. If the educator is not clear about what the students know or do not know, they risk not addressing misconceptions, moving off the topic too quickly, or not moving the class along if most of the students have grasped the material. In order to answer this question, educators should incorporate formative assessments into their instructional activities. These low-stakes assessments help to clarify students' prior knowledge and skills, their current level of understanding of the content, while also providing insights for how to better support students as they work towards achieving the learning objectives. Formative assessments, in turn, not only help the educator, but also provide students with immediate feedback on their performance, as well as provide opportunities to practice metacognition. This is a term John Flavel originally coined in the 1970s, which means thinking about thinking. This skill requires students to have awareness of their own knowledge on a specific topic, and awareness of their process for learning and retaining new information, while also being flexible enough to change that process when necessary in order to achieve their learning goals. In addition to formative polling, the educator can help students practice metacognition by providing reflection activities, encourage and allow for self-testing opportunities, or using concept maps or graphic organizers to visualize instructional content and see the connection between topics. Nagandla et al. In their article, Online Formative Assessments Exploring the Educational Value, indicate that medical designers recognize that formative assessments help to ensure deeper learning and understanding, while Havnes et al. Explains in their article, Formative Assessment and Feedback, Making Learning Visible, that experts recognize that it is the feedback provided by educators during a formative assessment activity that has one of the strongest influences on a student's learning gains. In the example we shared to address the formative assessment challenge, Cornelissen et al. In their article, Pharmacy Students' Experiences with an Interactive Video Platform to Develop Clinical Reasoning, used just-in-time Zoom polls to assess clinical reasoning by guiding students through a choose-your-own-adventure activity, which incorporated role-play, discussion, and formative assessments. The Zoom poll activities provided during the large group discussions were the #1 ranked activity of this course. It was not just the polling activities themselves, but rather the associated feedback on the appropriate clinical reasoning skills that was the most sought after by their students. When exploring the various polling options we considered to complete formative assessments, Zoom rose to the top for several reasons. Zoom recently added traditional polls as well as quiz question types, which provides more options for educators wishing to assess their students. The class in this example was being conducted virtually, so by choosing Zoom, they did not have to incorporate a new platform or tool. They could simply launch the activity from the tool they were already using to conduct the class meeting, thus saving class time in the transition between activities. The ability to choose whether students could answer anonymously and display correct and incorrect answers in real time were important considerations for these educators, as well as the option to generate reports from these poll sessions. It was these features, as well as an examination for how the tool features met the needs of the educator's situational factors, that helped narrow down the field of options to one tool. To see the comparison chart discussed in the demonstration portion of this presentation, see the video description for a link to this video recording. Our second challenge focused on the educator's concern that students would benefit from incorporating more interactive activities into the course. Vanderbilt University Center for Teaching Guide on Active Learning details the broad nature of active learning and the wide spectrum of activities that can be included. Similar to polling, the activities might be simple, like incorporating a think, pair, share, or more complex, like analyzing cases or role-playing scenarios. Active learning and formative assessments are often similar or use the same types of activities. Active learning techniques often task students to practice a skill or demonstrate knowledge, versus formative assessments traditionally being used to assess student knowledge. Student response systems, or web-based polling, have the added value of engaging students and incorporating their responses into the class activities. In her 2007 article, Clickers in the Classroom, an Active Learning Approach, Martyn compares online polling activities to other active learning methods like class discussions. The author supports that polling can be a superior choice as the educator is able to hear from all students rather than just a select few. Students also may be unwilling to engage in other active learning situations if they are not confident that they know the correct answer and may be unwilling to take the public risk of being wrong. Kay and LeSage agree in their article, Examining the Benefits and Challenges of Using Audience Response Systems, a review of the literature. There are many reasons to use audience response systems, or also known as student response systems. Their detailed review of 67 peer-reviewed papers from 2000 to 2007 found key benefits, including increases in attendance, attention levels, participation, engagement, learning performance, and assessment opportunities. In the example we shared, that wished to incorporate more interactivity into the lesson, the educator used Echo 360 interactive media to repurpose an existing video to add poll questions that would require the students to pause to complete the activities before progressing with the content. When exploring the various polling options considered, Echo rose to the top for several reasons. The key situational factor that stood out was that the content being adapted was for an asynchronous activity. This factor immediately narrowed the field. Echo 360 allows students to complete the activities on demand and at their own pace. The option to require a justification would allow students to support their answers when responding to poll questions. Personalized automatic feedback is immediately administered and customized based on the students' responses to the poll questions. And the option to add Echo 360 polls to a personal library to reuse them in subsequent videos was a major advantage given our educators' busy schedule. It was these features, as well as an examination for how the tool's features met the needs of the situational factors in our example, that led us to narrow our search when comparing tools side by side. Our third challenge focused on the educator's desire to provide more practice testing opportunities for their students. It was important for this educator, who taught in person, that students had the chance to see the verbiage that would be used on higher stakes assessments, and that students have practice test opportunities to see for themselves the areas in which they need to spend more time studying. Adesope et al. Completed a meta-analysis on the topic of practice testing, titled Rethinking the Use of Tests, a meta-analysis of practice testing. Their research suggests that retrieval practice increases student achievement and that the benefits were present regardless of the different educational levels, settings, and testing formats they reviewed. The authors support the incorporation of retrieval practice into structured instructional activities to promote learning. Does that then mean that all practice testing is beneficial and made equal? Well, not quite. In their article, Emotions and Self-Regulation During Test Taking, Schutz et al. Advised that the use of low-stakes practice assessments with limited or no evaluation stress on the students is the ideal environment to provide a positive experience and reduce the students' cognitive stress anxiety. In this example we shared to address the practice testing challenge, our educator wanted a polling option that would provide an abundance of customized and instant feedback to students, one in which students could complete the assessment in a self-paced method. When exploring the various polling options we considered, Socrative rose to the top as a live and engaging tool. The educator would pay close attention to the platform's features, such as the number of possible student responses, the total number of possible question and question types, but also asking questions like, does the tool allow for instant results in reporting? Well, Socrative does this very well. Additional factors that helped narrow our focus to using this tool were that Socrative allows for anonymous responses and provides the option to create quick questions on the fly. We have reviewed several educational challenges and how polling could address and benefit students given the general example situational factors we shared. These activities, when used intentionally, provide an opportunity for students to engage with their peers, practice and develop their knowledge on instructional topics, as well as self-assess their knowledge and skills. We encourage you to continue to research this topic and implement polling activities into your educational settings, whether that be in asynchronous, virtual, or synchronous course activities. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to engage with our second podcast episode of the Fall 2022 Seminar Series. I want to thank my amazing TLC teammates, Ms. Brenda Jackson, Dr. Julie Spear, and Dr. Quincy Conley. We hope you'll take a moment to provide us with feedback on this episode, and share if you have used polling and how you've incorporated these activities into your educational settings in the comments section below. For those interested, there is a link in the video description to let us know that you've listened and to get credit for the Level Up Certificate Program. Until next time, this is Brittany as part of your friendly TLC team, signing out for now.